Tamara Basic Tees here, and today I'm going to talk to you about stretch sequins. I had a subscriber ask me about making a leg garter with sequins, and it can be done with stretch sequins. So I'm going to go a little bit more into depth with this category. So let's take a look. We are at my cutting table, and I just wanted to show you the different widths of stretch sequins you can get. This red one on the end is probably going to be the easiest to find. You'll be able to find this at most craft or art stores. These thicker ones are going to be harder to find. I bought these on eBay, this thick one and this thicker one, all three of these on eBay, because they're a lot harder to find. It used to be really popular in the 90s. It just doesn't seem like it's that popular anymore. But do keep in mind that I live in the Midwest, so you might be able to find this stuff easily, maybe in New York or California. So every one of these sequin strips has elastic on the back of it. We'll turn it over and it's super stretchy. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I had a subscriber that wanted to make a garter out of these, and it would be pretty simple. All you would have to do is measure it, cut it off, and then you could hand sew it or you could use a machine. I have found that with sequins, hand sewing, you don't deteriorate and put needle holes in the sequins as you would with a sewing machine. A sewing machine is gonna tear up your sequence wherever you hem it. Some other uses for these stretchy sequins bands would be you could use this as the top band for a thong. I have made a couple of these that just were the top, and then I put the thong here in the center. Here would be a little wider band. The good thing about these wider bands at the top would be that they wouldn't cut into the sides quite as much, but you can see they're all just super stretchy. Things that are this wide, you could easily use for the bottom of a dress, maybe. Or you could make a tube top. This is a mini garter that I show you how to sew together in video number 23. And I am just going to sew this really narrow sequin on top of this and make a sequin garter. You can definitely just use this sequins by itself, but it may not hold your leg quite as tight as if you sew it on the top of here. Now I'm trying to be super basic because I've been doing this for so long. I just sometimes think people should know. Whenever I sew something, I thread the needle and I double the thread. So I pull it all the way through and there's both ends of the thread on this one side over here. Now I just tie knots in it. I loop it around my finger and tie a knot. And I'm going to do this a few times. And I'm going to make it a big and chunky kind of knot. I'll go ahead and show you both. I'll show you how to sew it on here, and I'll also show you how to just sew this together. I'll do both, and then I'll just sew it over the top. So you're just going to overlay this about 1/2 inch over the other side. And then you're just going to run where you tied the knot through, and you're just going to sew it. Sew it together by hand. I'll speed this up. Try to make sure that I sew down all the little fringy pieces that stick out from the elastic. I think that's pretty well attached. It's kind of not over there, so sew it some more. It didn't pass the stretch test. And then just turn it over and make sure you sew all this side down. I don't think there's any certain technique to sewing these parts together. There definitely kind of is sewing it to the elastic band though. And then when you're done, that's sewn pretty well together. I usually just loop it around my hand, and then where the loop is, oops, I hold on to it with my nail. Got stuck on some sequins there. Dagnabbit. And that's what happens when you sew with sequins. They kind of get in the way. So I'm going to fix this. Or I don't want the sequins to flip to the wrong side, I guess is the wording I was looking for. That's good enough. So I'm just going to nip the end of the thread off, and then I'll show you how I'm going to sew it onto the band. So we have the piece that we already sewed together. I didn't do a very good job, but I think you get the gist of it. And you're going to take the seam of your other garter that I showed you in that previous video, and you're just going to pin. You're going to pin them together. They should be about the same length. My go-to length for garters is 14 inches. And pin it however much you want to. Everyone's different. If you want more pins or less pins, use less pins. If you want to pin this baby up like a voodoo doll, you can do that too. So I've already put a new knot in my thread. I don't think I have enough to go all the way around either. And you're just going to loop it. You're going to put it through, and you're just going to pick up a little teeny tiny bit of this red elasticy stuff underneath. You're not really going to go through the sequins. You're going to stay on this side of it. And the thing with this sewing also is that when you loop it around and catch it underneath there, these loops are going to make it to where it can stretch. You're tilting it up a little ways. Oh, my thread's getting stuck. So it's pretty sticky, not sticky, stretchy. It's pretty stretchy. And if you want to, just to make sure it still has a lot of stretch in it, then pull the thread loose as you sew. It's still going to hold it together. Make sure it stretches. Tie your knot. You don't want it to get too short or you won't be able to grip it. And tie it down as far as you want it to. Because see, look, you can see the thread isn't all the way down. I just made it to where it'll be able to stretch and you won't have a problem with it. I have to go get some more thread and I'll be right back. If it lifts up too much in the front over here, you can always like kind of pull thread from the other side and make it more even. I don't know if that made sense or not. So I'm going to pick up where I left off, just a little bit farther away, and just pick up little teeny tiny pieces as I go. I wondered if my thread was too long, because the longer the thread is, the more likely it is going to get tangled in the sequins. I don't do this very regularly. See, got tangled in a sequin. And the deal with working with stretchy fabric, I've mentioned that before, but like there's more here than here. Make it work. Stretch it until it fits. I do it all the time. Hooked on another sequins. See, I just pushed that under there and now it's like evening out together. This part's going to be a little tougher because the fabric's doubled over. And this isn't the traditional mini garter I make. I just threw it together real quick, and the seams are a little thicker than they usually are. I'm going to just go over a little past because this is where I started. I'm going to tie a knot. So there's the finished product of reinforcing the inside band of your stretch sequins for a garter. You can always use a zigzag stitch if you want to. The only thing with that is it really does make your sequins not lie as nicely and look as pretty. Anytime you do sequins, I think it's better to hand sew it if you possibly can. I'm not that patient, so I do sew it on a lot with a zigzag stitch. It's totally up to you. I hope you found the information that I'm giving you very helpful. And if you like what I'm dishing out, go ahead and subscribe.